5:30. And if you'll join me for the pledge, please.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening. Today is Wednesday, February 21st, 2024, the time being 5:30 p.m. The meeting of the Greensburg Board of Works is called to order. At this time, please silence all electronic devices. To comply with Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, the city requests that participants in this meeting complete a voluntary anonymous survey that's available on the table in the back of the room. Amy, would you please call the roll?
Jamie Kane.
Here.
Lindsay Joe. Here. Robin Meyer.
Here.
Glenn Tebby.
Here.
Mayor Joshua Marsh.
You all should have received a copy of the minutes from the January 9th regular meeting, the February 5th executive session, and the February 6th special meeting. If there are no edits or additions or corrections, those will stand approved as presented.
So moved.
Perfect. Okay. There being no old business, we will move directly to new business. Sarah Walton with the Girl Scouts is here to talk about the Cookie Crumble 5K, another great annual tradition. Good evening.
Good evening. We're in our fourth annual event for this fundraiser for Decatur County Girl Scouts. We have over 100 girls registered this year in Decatur County for Girl Scouts. And this is our big fundraiser we do so that we can provide free or reduced cost programming throughout the year. So we are requesting to hold that event. We'll be leaving Rebecca Park, same route as we have all 4 years. We plan to have St. Paul and Adams volunteer fire departments at all of the crossings, and I think you have a map with all those marked.
So it's just at Montgomery Road, and then at Barochelle, and then
And
up in
Central, I believe,
and
is
Central.
another one.
Yep, perfect. Okay.
Yep.
What's the date, please?
It is April 13th, so right after the eclipse, big event.
Thank you.
Yeah. After.
And it starts at?
So we'll have registration at 7, and then the event kicks off at 9, and we're hoping to be done by 1, but that'll depend on the slowest walker runner.
Perfect. Board, any questions?
I think the only thing that's come, are you planning to paint at all, like on the roads? Okay.
No.
Perfect. Great answer.
We've not had any issues in the past, as far as I know, right, with that.
Not with this, but we have with paint before.
Yeah, I understand that, but I've meant just the logistics of.
No, we'll stay on the paved trail as much as possible.
If there's a motion to approve that as presented?
So moved.
Motion. Motion's been made by Jamie, second by Robin. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you. Up next, Matt Mason is here with the Veritas Group this evening to provide us an update, and then he's got a bigger presentation he's also here for next meeting. So welcome, Matt. Thanks for being here.
Good evening. I'll take you through real quick. Everything continues to go well out at the job site for both projects. Starting with site work, the concrete curb has been started in the shared parking lot between the two facilities. The storm is now 100% complete, and they've started some of the Barochelle extension that goes from, continues to the street department access. At the fire station, the brick is about 95% complete. The fiber cement board, which is the rest of the building facade, basically, is looking to get started here any day now. And then they are getting ready to prime and first coat paint on the first and second floor. Just walk through there, it's sanded down very well, so ready for paint. Windows are complete when I was out there, except for the curtain wall, which is scheduled to be installed in March, which is the larger section of windows there in the apparatus bay. Rooftop unit is scheduled to be set at the end of February, so in a couple weeks. And the hard lid and ceiling on the inside is beginning to get started this week to get hanging on that as well. A couple of items that came up for procurement. The generator, the generator's delivery date slid to July 2nd. That will not impact getting a C of O. We'll still be able to, we already have power to the building. This would just be the generator for emergency, and the contractor is looking to procure like a temporary generator for the first few weeks if needed, basically, while they're in the occupying the building. Same thing with the overhead doors. Those bifold doors are right now scheduled to arrive mid-May. Again, that's going to be at the tail end of the job, but basically the contractor will seal up the overhead door openings, basically, so they can continue on with the finishes inside the space. A couple photos from inside, since a lot of the work now is focusing on the inside. To the left is the apparatus bay, starting to get a lot of the miscellaneous metals up. And then the other photo is the second floor there, getting ready to start hanging the hard lid ceilings up there. Street department, masonry is complete there. Windows and storefront doors have also been completed, and they poured the concrete apron right in front of the overhead doors, which have also been installed with the operators. Drywall finishing in the office area is complete, and it's same thing, getting ready to start paint in there as well. And then again, power is on. They're already burning some lights in there. Again, couple photos from the inside there. The project remains on schedule. As Mayor mentioned, we will be discussing a couple new projects to kind of bring into this to add to the GMP, which would include paving all of the street department lot back there, some preemption devices on Broadway, some flashing signals and stuff for pedestrians and motorized vehicles, so they know that emergency vehicles will be pulling out. And then again, still remaining on track for late spring to complete and turn over. Doing the drone video a different way this time, but the storage unit there, if you go out there today, the roof is on now, so the storage unit does have a roof. They're continuing there. The salt barn is all but complete. The outside of the streets department, it's not going to be much different from the last time you saw it. Again, they started to pour a lot of the concrete walks and aprons around it, so you're starting to see that. And coming into view now between the buildings, you can start to see some of the curb work that's being installed there. At the fire station, again, all that green is what gets covered up by the fiber cement board, sometimes known as hardy plank. But overall, going very well, still maintaining schedule. Both contractors are working out very nicely up there. And then as we come around, you'll start, as just coming into view, you can start to see the extension of Barishell. They're starting to get that, the storm structures in and that aggregate base down to start extending that as well. Any questions?
Not to hold you to a date, but when you say late spring, are we saying like June 1st?
Right now, it's about June 1st, yeah. They're looking to try to get occupancy that last week in May. And then at that point, we'll be able to start moving in and moving equipment and everything in. But right now, it's tentatively that last week there in May. And then the streets department, we're actually starting to tentatively start talking about punch list, and we're going to be doing that walk right now. We're looking hopefully by the end of March to start doing a punch walk and everything. So there in April, we'll be able to start hitting that punch and then possibly moving furniture in April.
Okay, perfect. Any other questions for me? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chief McNeely. Good evening.
Good evening. So, first, two things I think are the same on the agenda. It's a change order and also a preventative maintenance contract from Cook Mechanical. When we had our last meeting with them, they came to us, or we we started a discussion about doing some preventative maintenance on the equipment that they've installed. There's a year of that that's included in the contract, in the project, but we currently don't have anybody that's doing that. We canceled our contracts for preventative maintenance when this project kicked off. In the meantime, they have done some preventative maintenance on our existing equipment. So the change order would be to adopt the preventative maintenance for 4 years following the first year that is included, as well as cover our existing equipment that's there, HVAC equipment, for the existing time that we don't start that 4 years. So we're looking at a total of 5 years of preventative maintenance for all the HVAC equipment in the building.
And the change order is worth noting, is that was something that we made an option, we selected an option
Yes.
post-bid that reduced our total project cost. So instead of getting back $15,000, we're just setting this up for 5 years of maintenance in exchange for that money.
The engineer, in that letter that you received, the engineer thought that was a very fair price to keep them, as well as they're the ones that installed it, so they're gonna have the most knowledge about the equipment as well.
And the only thing we're adding then is this relocation of a ceiling cassette.
Yes, that's already been done, yep.
Yeah, it's, the total contract amount has not changed.
Correct.
When we received the reduction, we had this treatment on a unit that we
Coil,
removed, and that reduced the price by X. The ceiling unit was subtracted off of that, and then the remainder. So we're still within the exact dollar amount already approved.
Correct.
We're just getting additional service.
Yep, 5 years worth.
We think it's a pretty good deal. Would be a recommendation that we approve that.
Yeah.
I'll set the motion to approve the 4-year HVAC maintenance equipment contract.
It's probably in the change order.
In the change order,
The change
yes.
order is the important part.
Okay, yes.
And second.
Motion's been made by Lindsay, seconded by Glenn. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank
You should have also received a letter from me that had just kind of an update on that project. We're about 98% complete. They were doing some of the last insulating today. We have a move-in date of next Thursday, Friday, that we're planning on getting back into our building. That's about 2 weeks early. We still have a few other little things that we've elected to do while we're out going on during that time, but we're going to go ahead and move in. And as much as we've enjoyed being over here at City Hall, we're very excited to get back into our building. Okay. The other item on the agenda for us is promotion of probationary officers. You should have had 2 letters, one for the promotion of James Sayer, the other for the promotion of Allison Reese-Miller. Allison was a lateral transfer, and she has completed 6 months of probationary status. James has completed 1 year of probationary status. They both are doing well. They're both working shift, and we have no complaints, and would look for you guys to move them up to full-time police, or remove the probationary status off their employment.
I'll make that motion.
Second. Motion's been made by Jamie, seconded by Robin. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you. Thank you. Assistant Chief Winning, good evening.
Good evening.
You're here to talk about our 150th birthday.
I am, yes. This year is the 150th anniversary, excuse me, of the Greensburg Fire Department, started in 1874. And I have been working on a book, putting together a coffee table book that we're going to have published. I have with me Tracy Winters, Winters Publishing, local publisher here in Greensburg, that is going to publish that book for us. I think you have a contract that Tracy has drawn up. In that contract, it gives the specifics of the contract, the 50% down, and then the remaining when the final proof is done. We did have Chris Stevens look over the contract, and he agreed to the contract, approved the contract, if you will. So that is my question this evening, is to enter into a contract with Winters Publishing to get this book published. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those for you.
I know I had asked you about a date of completion, just so that maybe we're not 2 years down the road and finally have a book published. I know part of the strategy of the book is to include the new station and the opening and the move-in of that, if I'm not.
That's correct.
So, and this may be a better question for Tracy, what's the estimated timeline of completion, assuming all materials submitted to you by, I'm gonna make up a date, August 1st, if you don't mind?
No, that's a fair date, because by the time, if we move in July, June or July, then I would finish the rest of the book, add that to the end of the book, and get the information to Tracy, August. So,
Yeah, so our,
If you don't mind, just so it's
Absolutely.
reported, thank you.
our plan is, Brian's he's got the first section to it by now, so we've got the first 50 years done with photos and the articles, so we're working on that now. So we're completing that while he's getting the second section put together, so hopefully by the time the station opens, we'll have all the old history done and ready to go. So all we'll have to do is add the celebration of the new structure opening and photos from that to the back of the book. So yeah, I think August is a very fair.
once you receive that in August, when would the book be finished, published, is the question, I believe.
So I think, when do you plan on having things to us?
August 1st.
August, okay, so we probably need about 3 to 4 weeks to get that wrapped up, and it will be at the printer, usually 5 to 6 weeks it'll be at press. So we'd be looking at maybe late September or October, but this year for sure. So it'll be done in the centennial year, but we'll be having it done by fall for sure. So, yep.
And I know that in terms of the cost, I know the cost seems fairly reasonable, but in terms of payment, where are we with, do we have something in budget, or are we looking at only being able to recoup 2/3 of that through sales? What's the plan on how we're?
Do you,
I think the chief had volunteered some money from some of their funds that they fundraise from. And then I didn't, do you intend to sell some?
We earmarked $5,000 from our budget,
That's what I'd seen here,
and
yes.
the mayor had said that they could come up with $5,000 for them through the city, through a fund, I don't know
Yeah,
where you'll
I
find that,
haven't
but
specifically identified that, but.
to complete the cost. But as you see in the contract, we do get 200 books. And if we sell 170 of those books, if we do, I don't know. I hope we sell 300, I don't know. But we will recoup some of that cost.
I think it's momentous that it's great timing for the change from the 150th anniversary or birthday, so as well as the new.
Yes.
So I think it's appropriate that we commemorate that in some way. And the book seems like the right way, one of the right ways to do it anyway. It may be other ways, but that's certainly an appropriate way to do it. So I'm supportive of the idea.
Thank you. It's been a lot of hard work digging and finding facts. And Tracy has 5 of these.
Just the first.
The first
couple
2
sections,
pages
just to
that
kinda,
you
I've
can,
gotten it to Brian to be sure we were on the right track. So you guys can look those over.
and
see.
you flip them.
And you can just turn the page in there.
Yeah.
About the first 4 pages are there, so you can kind of see how it's come along. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Brian, I'm sure, I don't know if you remember off the top of your head, but you had told me you found how much we paid for the fire station.
In 1874, the fire station was purchased from Augustus Lathrop, and the property was purchased for, I think it was $1,300, and they paid $3,335.50 to have the building built. And then in on South Broadway, the first station, and then in 1884, 10 years later, they paid $1,500 to have an addition. So it was 30 feet the first time, and then 20 feet the second time. So the total was approximately $5,000 to have that building built. The first steam engine that we bought in 1874 was $6,000, twice the cost of what the building cost to have built, because everybody was a carpenter in 1874. That was normal trade, but hardly anybody was a steam fitter or a pipe fitter to build a steam engine, so that therefore the cost was double. Interesting. It's a lot of facts, but I won't bore you with all that information.
Now that's a lot of effort. Thank you. This is great, though, actually.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the contract with Winters Publishing for the book?
So moved. Do we want to detail what fund it would come from in there?
I don't know the answer off the top. How about budgeted funds? I don't know that I can specify.
And I don't know that, I see your point, but on the other hand, I think that can be figured out here at another point in time.
I'll second the motion. As in,
I'll put it in one of the kind of things that we,
I didn't know, if, like rainy day or something like, I didn't know where it was.
no, it'll stay, I'll keep it in something that's already appropriated and budgeted.
Okay.
And then where the chief's got it marked in his, will just be from there.
Right.
So, motion's been made by Glenn, seconded by Jamie. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay.
And Tracy is here to sign the contract if you're interested in doing that this
Do
evening.
we have a printed copy?
I do, right here.
Okay, we can do that.
Brian, you could sell some books in your retirement.
Well, I hope we do sell some books. I don't know. I hope people are interested in the, it's very fascinating to me, but I'm a fireman, so.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. Yep, can do. Thank you. Up next, Donna, you've got a sewer leak adjustment.
My information is always very exciting, isn't it? Sewer leak adjustment request for account 290030300 in the amount of $590.41. The reason why it's being brought before the board is due to the amount of the adjustment being over $500.
This, so just for point of clarification and for everybody, the water board does not reduce or does not go back if someone loses water. There's not a water rate adjustment.
That is correct.
But there is sewer because we didn't actually treat that water that was lost.
Correct, yes.
And so the amount is $590.41.
Yes.
I'll make a motion to approve the adjustment.
I'll second that.
Motion's been made and seconded by Lindsay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay,
Thank you.
thanks. Zeke Smith, you've got a couple things.
Sure do. Good evening, board, mayor. I'll jump into my first item here. A few things on my agenda. That's the purchase of a secondary digester transfer pump. Essentially what this pump does at the plant is it attaches to a boiler in our secondary digester and it heats the sludge up to 99 degrees in an effort to maintain that for up to 18 days to complete full anaerobic digestion. This pump essentially attaches to that and circulates the sludge continuously 24/7 in an effort to maintain that temperature. It was installed in 2008. It's given us some problems. It's leaking at times up to about a 55-gallon drum of sludge onto the floor about once a month, and it is quite the effort to clean up when it does. So I was essentially looking to purchase this. When it comes in, we switch out the old with the new, get the old one fixed and keep it on the shelf for a backup. We currently do not have one. So.
What is the typical life of that, that piece of machinery?
I would hope probably 30 years. I would hope that typically after about 20 years it starts to show its age. This is about 15 years old.
Okay.
I would say once that gets probably bearings and a seal and a mechanical seal, hopefully we can last 15 more, I would think. But,
Has it just been working really hard?
24/7, it
Okay.
never shuts off. It literally has run
Okay.
15 years nonstop. So
Okay.
unless there's a power outage and then the backup generator comes on, it may only be off for a second, but it's a workhorse.
Okay, thank you.
And this is in budget.
And a necessary one.
Yes. Yeah.
So it says 28 to 30 weeks. Do you expect that to be the actual delivery time?
They're hoping less, but we'll see. And we'll deal with whatever.
Sure. And then, just for point of clarification, it's $20,435.
Correct.
Cost doing business, I would move approval.
Motion's been made by Glenn,
Second.
seconded by Robin. Just comes over here to buy pumps instead of on the water board. Good. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Thanks, Zeke. Okay, second item.
A couple of the things here, I'm looking to kind of review a couple task orders. One here for the Park Road Sanitary Sewer Review, as well as the Main Street sewer evaluation. I've got Mr. Steve Rubel here with me this evening from Strand Associates, and he's going to give you a high level, just kind of overview of kind of what this is and kind of what we're looking to achieve. With that, I'll give him the floor.
Thanks, Zeke. I understand you got copies of the task orders in your packet, so I'm not going to belabor the details of those. Basically, these are two studies for Zeke to look at two problem areas, or one problem area in the system on Main Street and another area on Park Road that's been previously planned, but because of the Park Road project needs to be reconsidered. So I'm here tonight to answer any questions you might have with regard to either of these two efforts and request your approval so that we can continue to move forward.
So for the Park Road component, this applies to the lift station that's near the bottom by the golf course entrance, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and then from there all the way to the plant is being reconsidered or being reviewed, or is it from where to where?
Yep, so it's the pumping station in its entirety, including the force main, which dumps in near the plant, near the Broadway intersection. Also being considered, there was a sanitary sewer designed in 2007 that would extend basically from that Broadway intersection again, back up Park Road toward the fairgrounds. And the sewer as it was designed to eliminate the pumping station that's on the north side of Park Road that serves some of those homes up there. So by installing the sewer, you could eliminate a pumping station, which is always a favorable thing to do in a wastewater collection system. Obviously, the one down at the pumping station for South Park will have to remain, but it's got some age on it, has some operational issues, and it hasn't been looked at, I think, from a planning standpoint of, hey, if we want this thing to serve us for the next 20 years, what's going to happen to keep this thing operational and be able to serve the expansion that we might see in this area at this pumping station we have to serve. So that's kind of the two-part process. One, understand what the needs are going to be for the pumping station itself. Two, review what was done back in 2007 for the Park Road sewer. Because of the way that Park Road is going to progress through its construction progress, that causes some challenges with the way that you would build the Park Road sewer, especially when you look at the phasing that's going to happen with Park Road itself. So just some things that have to be ironed out in order to keep that project viable.
A little bit of information on that pumping station is that currently has a 4-inch main leaving that pumping station, and because of just the restriction of that, we continue to have problems with the pumps as far as blowing mechanical seals, because the pumps being the size they are to keep up with the restriction of the pipe that's currently there, since it is somewhat problematic for us the way it is currently designed.
West Main, that's been an issue for a long time, so what are you looking?
Yeah, so part of what we'll do is we'll help Zeke get a contractor on board who does cleaning and televising the sewers. And so we'll be able to get in there, have a look at the existing sanitary sewer system, spend some time with his folks, understand what's out there from a collection system standpoint. We'll also look at the pumping station that's near the railroad tracks that serves that area. That's part of what's in our scope of services, to understand what needs to be done there and what needs to be done with that collection system to make it more functional and not have as many maintenance issues on that existing sewer. We don't know the answer to those questions until we do the study and look at it. But that is, when we come out of this study, Zeke's going to have a plan for what needs to be done out there to have a sewer system that is serviceable and able to serve that area for a long time without having to go out there and spend a lot of time fixing issues.
Is that work primarily focused on the east or west side of the railroad?
That would be almost entirely focused on the west side of the railroad.
The state's working on their project, so make sure we know. If we can add to it or not get in the way or.
Yeah, that's all part of the thought
That's the
process.
plan, yeah.
I figured it probably was. Just
Yep. While we're there, might as well.
any questions for Steve or Zeke on this? The West Main order is 19,500 and that's an August 30th completion. And then the other one is 31,400 with a May 31st completion. Any questions? We probably have to do these separately. So we take an order to, or a motion to approve the Park Road task order for the amount listed.
So moved.
Motion's been made by Lindsay, seconded by Jamie. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed. Main Street for the amount proposed by Strand. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion's been made by Robin, seconded by Lindsay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed. Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Zach Weary. Good evening. You've got a couple items for us.
Good evening. Yes, to follow up on our February 6th bid openings for CCMG 2023-2 Franklin Street, we did award that contract to Globe Asphalt as detailed in that meeting. And then quick update is we did finalize the agreement with them and are moving forward, hoping to get started sometime in April on the project.
Pre-construction meeting is Monday, so that's good. That's kind of the kickoff to everything. So.
Yep.
Questions for Zach on that? Okay, the next item, the Duke Energy conversation.
So Duke Energy came to us with a proposal to replace all of the existing street light heads with new LEDs. This is a win-win for us and Duke, as Duke lowers their maintenance issues with the old headlights that probably have been there for years upon years, along with lowering the toll on the electrical grid of using LEDs instead of standard bulbs. For us, as you can kind of see in the breakdown that was provided, it lowers our monthly billing about $2,000 a month for the whole city. Along with that, we do get approximately $15,000 rebate for using LEDs instead of the old bulbs. It's broken out into 3 different contracts just because of the size of the contract. They can only do 200 at a time. We have approximately 430 street lights out here. So that's why there's 3 separate contracts for that. And then I think their schedule is by the end of the year, they'll have them all replaced and done.
It's worth noting that these are Duke-owned, city-paid-for public street lights fixtures. So Duke has been in town over the last few months, and they've done a actual on-the-ground assessment evaluation of all of those that they consider to be theirs and that we pay for. It's worth noting that the city does own some streetlights, the more ornamental ones like on Lincoln and Veterans Way and downtown. So not all streetlights are owned by Duke. Some streetlights are owned by Duke but are paid for by residential members or are just up and about. So I want to make it really clear that just because it's a streetlight right now doesn't mean that it's on this list to get replaced. It has to be a Duke-owned, city-paid-for light. So that's what we're doing. If somebody has a private light or somebody's paying for a light from Duke, that's not in this. So if something comes along, and not to say they won't miss one, but lots of lights in alleys are not on this system. Lots of other neighborhood lights aren't necessarily on this system. So this is sort of very specific, but it is citywide. It's I think a better quality light, it's a better quality product, it's less maintenance, and it costs us less money per month, which seems like a triple win. Would there be a motion to approve all of these agreements with Duke to do this and for me to sign on behalf of the board?
So moved.
Motion's been made by Jamie,
Second.
Seconded by Lindsay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Perfect. Thank you, Zach. Mark, you've got heavy trash.
Good evening. We always bring it to you for final approval. We have tentatively scheduled heavy trash for the week of May the 20th through the 24th. That gives an opportunity to have everything concluded before the Memorial Day holiday weekend. Hopefully have town looking pretty good by that Friday afternoon and everything collected. We're going to follow the same guidelines we have for the last 3 collections. We've somewhat limited the construction debris, a couple of the foreign items that we just seem to get overwhelmed with, and it has made a tremendous difference as far as our standpoint of being able to get the work completed.
And I think our crews have been happy with those tweaks.
Yes.
Okay. Any questions for Mark?
Just, at one point in time, we talked about doing that once a year versus twice. Is that, we talked about that anymore?
No, we really haven't.
It seems
I
like with,
think we'll see how we go here in May, and then we'll get a grasp for what we end up with in August. I'll try to see what the trends are for the last couple of years, and I'll report back to you in
September
or maybe,
something. Yeah,
maybe
maybe October.
we'll look at going forward. And if we do, we'll probably opt to do it, I would say probably June.
Okay.
Yep. I know it's kind of a chore on us because May, the grass is growing tremendously and we're just overwhelmed and things get behind so quickly. You get a little later into the summer, it's a little more temperate, so we don't have quite the issue. But we will investigate it further.
Thank you, sir.
I think it's also gotten better because we've gotten it fit sort of inside the work week. That helps with doing it twice, even though we may not want to.
I mean, I think just some of the rules we put on here, I think have helped a lot, so.
They have. And the two have not caused us the issue as far as the amount of overtime we used to incur with the rule changes.
I'm not trying to create an issue that wasn't there. I know I thought we discussed it once, but maybe.
We talked
maybe
about
this
it,
has fixed that.
that we've seen such a tremendous change when we done it. The first one was in August of 2022, I believe. And we've seen the change there, and then it continued all throughout both collections last year. So we'll do it one more time, and then we'll see what we want to consider going forward.
Motion to approve as presented.
Second.
Motion's been made by Glenn, seconded by Jamie. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Okay, one item that we wanted to be sure that we brought up is in relation to the eclipse. Do you want to talk about it, or?
Sure.
Okay, with road closures that the city is wanting to implement as part of our public safety plan.
So right before the meeting, a map was put into your packet, but I'll explain it if you don't have your computer with you. So for the food trucks to be there and to be able to be in a place where they can move around when they need to, at the end of the day, we would like to close Central Street from Big Blue to Northeast 80. We understand that that includes Lee Addition as well as Arbor Grove, and we are working with them. We have a meeting with Arbor Grove on Friday. We've already talked to the superintendent or the supervisor out there, and we have a meeting scheduled to host everybody from Lee Addition and to talk about that. We're going to do limited access to those folks only and the people they want there, which should help them feel a little bit better about not having just a bunch of people flood into their neighborhood. So that was the one part of the closure. The other is a lane restriction, and that would be on Montgomery Road from Davidson Street to Lincoln, one way only to the west. So from the event area towards the hospital. And that was just a safety concern of if we have medical issues, being able to get people to the hospital as quickly as we can and not have to fight eastbound traffic. Is there anything more that I missed on that?
Everything else relates to closures of school driveways and those kinds of things, not public streets.
Yeah, restricting access onto the street from those private locations.
Any questions? If not, I think it would be good if we could get approval to close the streets like we do other things. Motion to approve as presented, please.
So moved.
Motion's been made by Lindsay, seconded by Jamie. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you, Chief, to you
Thanks.
and Chief Sturmer, who have been working on that very diligently.
A year and 2 weeks.
2 weeks. He's not counting.
Nope.
Last thing before we do claims, I had sent you a copy of the Washington Township Fire Service Contract for 2024. They have signed it, it is here. If there are questions or concerns or things that we want to change, we can deal with that and send it back and they can re-sign it. Chris is here now too, if need be. Was there any comments, thoughts, or concerns?
Yeah, I'm trying to find it, pull it up. But I did have a question. Was it section 22, or it was on the ownership of, basically, that's the only piece I had a concern on, where it basically gives us the ownership of equipment. Gotta find it.
It's section 22.
In section 22,
I can't find it, sorry. And it will-
It really, besides equipment, I think is in another section. This one's specifically dealing with emergency sirens.
Yes, that's, okay, yeah, that's the piece I was talking about, is it's basically stating that we'll own those. And my only concern is, I think they're pretty pricey, I'm not sure, I may be wrong, but I was thinking they're about 20 grand a piece. And by us owning them, then that means we replace them, is my understanding, when they go bad or they're no longer serviceable, and that was just that was my only concern.
Yeah, and the way I read I don't know if it says we own them, it says that upon transfer, the city shall have sole responsibility for ensuring, maintaining, and utilizing such sirens. That's the last, at the city's discretion and determination. That's the last sentence of that paragraph. And so I don't know if that means that upon, it's similar to what some of the other pieces of equipment that we have, that they have, and we, the fire trucks they own, which they continue to say they do in the document, but we're responsible for maintaining them and servicing them and insuring them.
Well, I guess it's ensuring, maintaining, and utilizing. It doesn't say, maybe I was confusing that.
No, right above it, it does. So any fire siren systems or equipment associated with weather sirens are purchased by the township shall become the property of the city.
Oh, yeah.
That's where, okay, yeah.
So it also references the resolution that they passed last year where we accepted all ownership of sort of the ticky-tacky stuff that wasn't the trucks. And I don't recall that ever being a part of the conversation for us to own the weather sirens. Now that is less than $40,000, so that's very reasonable of their interpretation. If we wish not to own the sirens, then I would recommend that we just strike this paragraph in its entirety and we send it back. Chris, do you have any comment on the conversations about owning all of the non-truck based equipment? I don't ever remember there being a conversation about the sirens.
I don't specifically recall there being a conversation about the sirens. Obviously the non-truck based, I'm trying to find it as well. But the non-truck based equipment, it kind of makes sense for us to assume ownership of that stuff, just because it's on, we're going to be the ones using it, we're going to be the ones maintaining it. And I remember at one point during the conversations of this kind of evolving contract, that was the idea of, look, if we're going to be the ones using it and taking care of it, we want to have that kind of ownership interest in it. I don't recall the sirens ever being an issue. I will say, I believe these sirens are replacing ones that are maybe 20 years old. I mean, I think they have a relatively long lifespan. So that, from that perspective, the ownership of it doesn't necessarily concern me of like, this is going to go bad in 2 years and we're just going to have to replace it. But I do not specifically recall that being a conversation that we had.
I also think one other point maybe on this, that after I talked with Glenn as we walked in here, it talks about the township owns sirens that are not inside the city but are in the township. So I'm not sure that the city should be responsible for owning the sirens that are not located in the city. So that would be another point of clarification, because any fire sirens shall become.
Right.
I don't know that that's, that if we strike it until that can be clarified, and it can always be added, it's not like, well, within a year, next year, we're gonna have this again, we can have something clarified, and at this point in time, just remove it until we can clarify it, or don't sign it until we sit back and we all sit down with each other and find out what, that'd be my recommendation, that we have an opportunity to sit down with whoever we need to sit down with and clarify these things, because there's a few other things in here that I think call for some clarification as well.
So with that, I was gonna say, if you're not, I certainly wouldn't do it piecemeal. So I mean, I think you could either fully strike that paragraph and say, look, we'll approve it as stricken, and if we need to, we'll add an addendum to it at a future time. But I think that adds a level of complexity that's probably not necessary. So I mean, I think my recommendation would be, if that point needs further clarification, which I think it probably does, would be to table this to your next meeting to give you an opportunity to have all of the stakeholders have a conversation about that particular provision. Because I'm fairly certain that Washington Township doesn't want you to own sirens that are outside of the city either. But I don't know, because I've never specifically had that conversation with either the trustee or their counsel, who is, I still believe, still Laura Williams.
Is the, and maybe a piece of the conversation though, since we're all sitting here in session, is there an interest in the city actually owning the ones that are in the city, or is that something that we're not interested in owning? Because that can drive out paragraphs, instead of coming back and saying, well, we didn't actually answer that question.
So some are owned, but there are some sirens currently that we have purchased and we do own.
Yes.
There are others that have been purchased by the township, of which the city of Greensburg is within the township, and that they have purchased, right?
That are
That are inside the city limits, yes.
And then there are township sirens that have been purchased that are outside of city limits. Okay.
My concern would be the ones outside the city limits. I think that's, the ones inside the city limits, I probably fair that we own those at some point. I don't know. At least we're having the discussion.
I think, I don't know, there's an urgency to sign this. I mean, I would think that it might be appropriate for us to have an opportunity to sit down and clarify, as well as I got a couple other things in here that I think maybe needs to be clarified with regard to, on their behalf as well as ours.
Do you want to point those out quickly for our review, or do you want to just send them later?
Well, number 6, that's one, in terms of the designating the fund that's one. There's early on in the whereases, it talks about only providing equipment, provide equipment in support of such services, but really the contract also asks them to provide funding for additional costs that we have. In 12, I think, the wording in that one's a little clumsy, and I'd like for us to sit down and talk about that. 14, I think, they have they say the township agrees that the Washington Township trustee, well, should be probably the city agrees. For example, there's another one like that. So there's a couple of other places where that has come up. And so I'd like to sit down and clarify these things.
Does anybody else have any point of interest?
I can make a motion to table this for now if you'd like.
Sounds like a plan.
Second.
Motion's been made, second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay. You all should have received a copy of the claims. Any comments? If not, take a motion to approve those as presented.
So moved.
Motion's been made by Lindsay,
Second.
second by Jamie. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Anything else? If not, take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion's been made. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.